an address on it, then these fine gentlemen up here will answer them for you after their presentation. So I'd like to welcome you, and I thank you for coming in on this beautiful day. It's really wonderful. How are we doing, Chris? Good. No. I can just use
Yeah.
Or do you want me to use All right, let's try that again. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's wonderful to see all of you here. I am so glad you came to hear about the different options available for Birchwood. I'd like to begin by introducing those who will be speaking this evening. I'm Jennifer Arsenal, Mayor of Birchwood. This is Marcus Johnson, our city engineer, and Scott Hildebrand, our very brand new city administrator. Yay! We are very pleased to have Mr. Hildebrand join the team of public servants here in Birchwood Village. Scott brings 25 plus years of experience in local government. He has worked for the League of Kansas Municipalities, where he traveled the state and helped many small cities with limited budgets address a variety of issues. He also brings with him over 12 years of city administrator experience. I suspect his expertise will be extremely beneficial to our city. So I'm grateful to have both of these fine gentlemen here working for Birchwood. I've heard some residents who are concerned about the cost and scope of infrastructure upgrades, and I appreciate that. They're big projects. They cost a lot of money. The previous council passed a road improvement plan, which is the current plan being followed. I asked Marcus if before we proceed with the current road plan and stormwater management, if we should consider replacing the water mains. And that is where this alternate option originated. This option may be more beneficial to the residents of Birchwood. I will be asking council next week if they think it would be worthwhile to have a task force look at the current plan and this new option to garner their opinion and feedback. The last open house was to gather input from residents about the issues they see in the city having to do with the stormwater runoff and the options to handle that. This town hall will address this new option and its costs. For the past month, Mr. Johnson has been researching grants and pulling together numerous numbers for us to make an informed decision. Mr. Hildebrand hit the ground running and on his first official day in Birchwood, met with a financial advisor who works with many cities to finance capital improvement plans. I have spoken with mayors in the area to see what they have been doing in their cities with regard to aging infrastructure. Marcus will get into the details of the option, but the basic overview is that the current road plan goes out about 30 years, with some roads being completely rebuilt and others being milled and overlaid, and keeping the bituminous curb, which is what we currently have. The total cost to the residents would be over $11 million. If we choose to go with the new option, the city could get a new water main, new leads to residents' homes, new rebuilt roads from the ground up, concrete gutters, and storm water management for around $3 million. When Marcus presented that information to me, I couldn't believe it. That's an $8 million difference between our current plan and this new option where we could get so much more. Some have asked about the lifespan of water mains and when they should be replaced. As a reference point, Matamidi started replacing their water mains over 10 years ago. When we, or if we, choose to replace the water mains, they have a life expectancy of 80 to 100 years. As elected officials, it is our responsibility to plan for today and for the future of our city. We are right now reaping the benefits of those who came before us with their plans for the building, for the parks, and for the easements. It is standard practice for a city to have a capital improvement plan, plans that go out 5, 10, 20 years, that cover roads, parks, and playgrounds, water mains, etc. It is important for taking care of our infrastructure and for being fiscally responsible to residents by planning for and spreading the cost out over many years. With that being said, the format for this evening will be to have Mr. Johnson review the current road plan, its cost, scope, and timeline. He will then present the new option, which includes replacement of the city's water mains. When Mr. Johnson has finished, Mr. Hildebrand will address the financing piece of the projects. To be efficient with our time, please jot down any questions you may have along with your name and address. I will collect them and have Mr. Hildebrand and Mr. Johnson answer them. At that time, if you have a follow-up question, you will have an opportunity to ask it. The purpose of this town hall is to disseminate information and answer questions about the optional plan. If you have other concerns you'd like to discuss, please reach out to me. I am here almost every afternoon. I'm available by phone and I am available by email. We value resident input. We value resident feedback. We want to hear from you. Do not be afraid to come talk to me personally. We want to do what's best for you. With that being said, go ahead, Mr. Johnson, hit it.
It is working this time. Thanks, Jennifer. So I'm sorry you guys can't see this. I'm sorry you can't see the screen the greatest. Everything that I have on the computer today is right in front of us. So my goal today is just kind of briefly talk about what you're even looking at here, right? Kind of like last time, of what's on each sheet, why you're looking at it, and then at the end, we'll have a Q&A and then just have a discussion, kind of walking through each one of these and if any questions you have or whatnot. So the first sheet up on the screen and then on that first table, that's what we're proposing for this year's project. So we had the drainage issue on Oak Ridge Drive, and the ultimate thing, assuming we proceed with this water main project, is to mitigate the drainage issues. So in the top right corner, looking at the screen right in here, those black dots, those are rough areas of where we're proposing to put ditches in. So I'll field mark these for the residents that it affects, but essentially we're going to be, the road grade's really flat there. It's not what today's standards are. So the water comes down the hill screaming, and it stops there because the road starts slowing down. So temporary basis, we're going to put ditches in. It's going to vary based on the utilities and make sure we're not uncovering stuff that we don't want to uncover. So it'll have to be a field fit ordeal. And then we're going to patch in the asphalt curb. Further down the stretch, there's significantly more grade there. And it's just going to be mill and overlay, kind of expecting us to get it another 10 years, which I'll get to later of why we're looking at that. And kind of mitigate that corner of the city while we look at other parts of the city. So generally, it's just going to be an 1.5 inch mill and overlay across where we ended last year to the end of both cul-de-sacs. And then the ditching will be partially on this project and partially on last year's project. Just again, I'll stake these out in the field. And then with any questions or concerns and stuff, I call it a ditch, but in total it's going to be 6 inches deep, and the base of it's 3 feet wide. So there's examples in town that I can point out of where once it's seeded and the grass is growing, you won't even notice that it's there. And then beyond that, we're just mitigating broken bituminous curb, and then it'll be a new mat on top. Any questions with that? Price-wise, we're roughly at $105,000. So that's roughly the budget that we're kind of looking at without any increases and stuff. So at the last open house, we had feedback that it would be helpful to have the robotics So the next sheet's the robotics, and then the next two sheets after that are our current CIP. One lays out what's going to happen on that street the next round, whether it's a mill and overlay, crack seal or fill, and then what year is the next one. Yeah, so good question. What is robotics? So I think it was in 2023, we sent someone out in a vehicle. They scanned, 2023. They scanned all of our roads, all 4.2 miles, and gave pavement ratings. So you can see the red are going to be your issues that you're kind of working out. Potholes are showing up, some stress cracks or cracks, whether it's horizontal or longitudinally or transversely, those kind of things. And so this has kind of been the basis of how the CIP started, for those that don't know. So the next two, as I mentioned, there are CIP plans. So this is that next one on the second table, first map. That's what shows the mill and overlays, the reclaim, reshape, and repave. So the mill and overlay is what happened on the cul-de-sac last year. The reclaim, reshape, and repave is what happened on like 5 Oaks Lane, for example. And then crack fill and seal coat. I mean, that's where we're throwing asphalt material in the cracks and then seal coating it over top. And then, yeah. Then the last one is the years proposed at this date. These. Yep. Yep, so in this one, the colors represent each year. And again, these are all up front. I'm kind of just laying the groundwork out of what's on the tables.
So the green is 2024, the yellow is 2025.
Yep.
Blue, the dark blue is 2026, orange is 2027, and magenta color is 2028, turquoise 2030, and that purple says beyond 2031, black 2033 to 2034.
And this hasn't been updated since last April, so a year ago. And that's, I think Jennifer kind of hit on that. We're going to be looking at updating this again because like Oak Ridge Drive, for example, we didn't have this part done until 2030. So we're pushing that up because that's a high issue right now, and then we have to adjust accordingly from there. So the second and third sheet, this has the cost. I believe this is still on the city's website.
The $11 million. Okay, so this is the original plan that Marcus is going through, this one, with all the robotics information on it.
Yep. Do you have the mic still, Jennifer?
So this is the original road plan that we're following currently. This is what Marcus is talking about and the years that it's going to occur. I just want to go back to this robotics thing. When you come up and look, you'll see that the red areas are the worst areas in town. If we follow this original road plan, I got the $11 million by adding up all the costs it would be over the years from, well, today until 2034. 11 million. Okay.
34, 36.
Yeah, I can't read that either.
36, 36. Are you sure it's 11 million?
I am. I added it up.
Those types 10 years to 1136.
That's the plan that was passed last year.
Is any of this available on the city website?
Yes.
You can just download this and
Yeah, and I can make you copies too if you want. I'm going to put together all this information in a handout and mail it to your houses so you can also review it at home. Okay, sorry, Marcus. Oh, here.
Okay. So last open house, people were wondering, well, this is what we're talking about doing a 2028 project. What's the whole city look like, right? So since then, we've kind of looked at, as the whole city, trying to phase this out in similar sizes. So funding, it's going to be enticing for funding, and then trying to get through town in a reasonable manner without the whole town being ripped up. So the pink right here, this is going to be the first phase, and again, this is up front. We can talk about this past this. This is potential. Yep. I mean, if there's more issues that come up or changes or whatnot, please feel free to send them to me or the city. And
why are we here? Is there extensive water leakage from our current system? Why are we here? Why is this relevant to how we're experiencing our water delivery right now?
do you want to hit that now or later? I can hit it too if you'd like, but
Okay, like I was saying earlier, I was reviewing the current roads plan with Marcus. And while we were reviewing it, I just asked him, well, if we're going to put all these new roads down, does it make sense to address the water main? The water mains in town were installed in 1962. They're not going to last forever. These roads that we're doing here will last 50 years. So between now and the next 50 years, we're going to have to replace the water mains. So in talking with Marcus about it, I said, well, let's explore what the cost would be. And he did, and he came up with grant money, which is the difference. So it's one of the grants. Can I talk about this now, or you want to talk about it? So this potential optional program, we haven't decided anything yet. I want to make that clear. Marcus found 3 different grants, one to address the stormwater issues in the city, one to address the replacement of water lines, and one to replace your portion that goes, or the homeowner's portion that goes between the city water main and your shut-off in your front yard or your driveway or whatever it is. That would all be replaced. Because it has to do with water, we can get a lot of grant money. So when we were talking about it and we crunched the numbers, it would be the $3 million, but we would get all this new infrastructure and brand new roads. Bottom up, brand new roads, not mill and overlay, brand new. It just didn't make sense to me. It wasn't logical to me to have us continue with a roads plan, putting brand new roads in place, and continue to have water main breaks where we go in and we tear up the road. And then we have to fix the road. So the difference, that $8 million, it really stuck out in my head. Like, why are we doing this? Why not go for it for 3 instead of pay 11 and get not much? Yes.
Maybe you'll talk about this later, but I'm just wondering what kind of grants you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because Northfield was just disallowed all the grants they applied for, and they have contaminated water. So I'm just wondering what kind of grant, a lot of this has been frozen, so is this something that you have a lot of confidence you'd actually get at this time?
Marcus is our expert.
yeah. So EFA, they have both water main replacement grants, and then the part that I guess I haven't even told Jennifer yet is they also have a water service replacement. So since the water main was put in the 60s, none of this can be grandfathered in to be up to code, essentially. That's why you guys have been getting mailer after mailer of the lead service inventory stuff, and I understand everyone's sick of that, right? But
We had significant unaccounted for water loss.
I can't hear it. What did you say?
We had significant unaccounted water loss.
No.
None.
Is there, and
It's not the water
I would
loss, it's
ask,
your
is
water
there
quality.
any such thing as a leak-proof pipe?
We might have to pass the mics out because I couldn't hear. what
Oh,
you said.
sorry. I can do that. So I kind of wanted you to finish your presentation before we just start throwing these questions.
Yeah.
Finish up, and then
Okay.
we'll do that.
Okay, so the summary of this sheet is we're looking at working from the city, outside of the city, in. So we're hitting the edge of Birchwood right along here with the first phase. That would be in 2026 to 2028. Then we'd be looking at the light blue. So continuing on and then hitting the cul-de-sac while we bring the new water pipes toward Cedar. Hitting the orange. Lake right now is in pretty good shape, so I was trying to push that off as long as I could. And then hitting the remainder of the road right outside, and then hitting what we're just got done talking about last before Cedar. And some are gonna ask, why are we doing Cedar last? And that is the road that all of the trucks, all the construction equipment are gonna come in and out on. So it doesn't make sense to do it anywhere else but last when it takes all the abuse. And then I did add for sure 1 year, or no, I added 2 years, looks like, of public communication, of letting everyone know that, Cedar's going to be a big shutdown. Well, it's not going to be able to be shut down, but the amount we're going to be doing, we're going to need to have a lot of public communication, letting the county know. All this stuff takes time, so I pushed that out a few more years. So this is the same map that we saw last open house. This would be the current area of what's proposed for next year's project. And again, so sorry, I forgot to hit on the cost. $14.3 million is what it's going to cost to replace the water main. Now, if we choose to not do it for 10 years, the price is what it is. It doesn't matter if it's going to be starting today or starting 10 years down the line. The only thing you got to factor in is inflation. So what?
I'm sorry, did you mention it factored into inflation? And the construction cost, because don't tell me that for 10 years from now, you get that certain unit for the same price as you got it 10 years prior. So I haven't financed, so
Yeah.
I'm quite into this project, and I don't really.
Good question. It is not. 14.3 million is if we were today to go through and replace every single water main in town. That's not including inflation, because I'm not an economist. I don't know what inflation is going to be when we're bidding Cedar out in 2040. So it's today's cost. So, if this gets delayed 5 years, I couldn't tell you. But
No, the only question I had, I just looked at the very briefly, the inflation roughly, the construction in Minnesota for the last 5 to 10 years is about 5 to 7%.
Yep.
So if it's a very basic rule 70 is going to basically double. So
Yep.
I was just wondering if you postpone it for another 7 to 10 years, what you present, those numbers are, and you're probably not going to be here anymore, but those are going to be at least double. So we have to pay significantly more.
Yeah, and we also don't know if the funding's going to be, what funding is going to be available, or anything like that. So, good question. So kind of getting back to what Jennifer was talking about as far as cost-wise goes, to date, 14.3 million. Birchwood Village would be looking at 2.9 million out of this, And then the PFA funding potential, assuming, you know, that we proceed with this and keep going, would be the 10.8 million that's funded, right? And then the Rice Creek Watershed District, they've had a revolving stormwater grant for quite a while now, and across the projects, I'm looking at getting 600,000 from there, roughly. So, what are we looking at for proposing for next year? So, the area is in pink. That's roughly, this would be a 2026 to 2028 project. It's gonna have to be phased. So, Wildwood, I imagine, is gonna be 1 year, and then Birchwood Village is gonna be, Birchwood Ave is the next year. And then the final course of paving would then go down in 2028. So everything underground would be done in the first 2 years, roughly. And then the last layer of asphalt would go down in the third year to kind of let all the settling come out and stuff like that. I'll save you the details of the boringness. But
Sort of opening up the ditches.
yeah.
And moving things underground.
Yep. So, like, for this year, that's part of the reason why I don't have set locations for the ditching, because there's going to be utility meet, or quite a few of them, to make sure that we're not conflicting them and we're getting the job done that we're trying to accomplish.
Gas and electric where it's possible.
Yeah, so Excel, in this first location, they'll have a handful of relocations. Do it. There's quite a few steel gas main in town, and they're already planning on relocating some of that. The power-wise, I'm still kind of talking with those guys. They don't have any set plans yet, but gas will be right in front of us to get it out of get it out of the contractor's way, and then be new services and everything like that. But that doesn't include in this cost, because that's Excel doing it. And
Yeah, because if it's lines, then they're digging up the road again.
Yep. So,
You know, and if they don't coordinate the gas and the electric, then they're digging up the road twice. I used to work for Excel. I've seen it happen where the total actual planning by both Excel and the city was totally ridiculous, because they dug up the same road 3 or 4 times.
Yep. And I know for at least this next phase, they're kind of just waiting for the city's green light to keep going with the funding and stuff for this project, and they're gonna maybe even hit it this year. So they just need to know what we're moving forward with a plan before they do it. So total cost, $4 million, assuming that the funding works out, because this project does rely on funding, right? Birchwood Village's total project cost would be $800,000.
That's just for these 2 roads here.
Just these 2 roads, right? Yep.
And it's because of the population density.
Yeah, there's a lot of services in this area, a lot of services. And then having the split road, where it's just one way, you have 2 water mains, 2 roads to maintain. But so the PFA funding that I'm proposing would cover approximately $3 million, and then the Rice Creek Watershed District grant would be $172,000. Yep, this is all obviously contingent on getting a funding approval and those future conversations, but that is roughly what I'm looking at this moment. So,
Administrative, is there any limit within say the bylaws or the city resolutions of Birchwood Village as to how much money can the city council approve for spending without going to the people that live in the city for a vote?
Let's let these guys finish their presentation, and I'll come back and you can ask that question again so we can hear you on mic. Otherwise, the people that are watching won't be able to hear you.
I have the AC here, so I'm having a hard time hearing. But so, what's this covering, right? So, sanitary sewer was lined a handful of years ago, and we've been looking at, originally it was going to be services within the right of way, but as of Thursday, PFA changed, and now they want, if they're going to be funding it, they want the whole service replaced. So that's another detail that we'll have to kind of work through. But it'd be the whole service all the way from the water main, and then if you have a good material coming out of your house, you won't have to have a plumber inside. But if you have like ductile iron or lead, mainly are the two that are coming into your house, a plumber would have to come in and then plumb it. It's usually to the meter, and then put a approved material. So that's what PFA pays for as well.
Right, that was grant funding as
That's
well.
that's
so
all
it's
grant
not going to
funding.
cost residents anything to have that replaced. Like if you have lead pipes. Yeah. They want to know if the grants are guaranteed.
Well, I mean, we have to apply and then get it approved. But yeah,
Right.
we have a handful
Obviously,
of projects
we
that-
wouldn't proceed if we didn't get the grant. I mean, we're not going to shell out $14 million. So yeah, we have to submit a plan before we can apply for grants. We're not going to get the grant unless we have a plan. So we got the plan, then we're going to apply for the grants.
I know
Don't get the grants, we're not going forward.
Anoka's been doing this for 2 years. Forest Lakes starting this year. I know of probably another 5 communities that are doing the same exact thing. So the lead service inventory stuff doesn't look like it's going away. They're still mandating the cities to update their maps, and this year there'll be more funding to start doing curb stop checks. But if we proceed with this, they will just put the money towards replacement rather than having someone come in and dig down at each curb stop. So talked about the funding for the services. The water main would be funded as well, and then with that replacement of those two, the area that you would need to dig up the water main and services, so that would be the parts of the road, any curbs, yards, that'll all be funded through PFA for replacement as well. So that's kind of where Jennifer's saying that road costs would also be covered as well. So there's very few funding sources for replacement of roads that I've seen so far, but this is one of them where, since we're coming in and fixing the utility, that they'll cover the cost for that repair.
That's going to save us $8 million because they'll cover it. We don't have to pay that because we're doing the water. The only way we can get our roads paid for is by doing the water main. That's why we're trying to figure out cheaper ways to get our roads done, because I know everybody wants new roads. That's what we heard over and over again. So we were exploring cheaper ways to get to that conclusion, and that's what we came up with. So,
Yep.
what are you asking me? They what? What did I just say? Oh. Okay. Marcus, do you want to address that?
Yeah, Department of Health is the main one. Both at a state level, so the state's actually a little bit more strict than the federal is, but federally, yes. As you guys have said, the federal funding is frozen at the time being, but the state still has their funding, and they're still proceeding to continue to keep funding stuff. So.
Yeah, right, and they just came up with a number that after the last couple of years, we had like record income, and right now they predict that starting this year, 2025, we're gonna be deficit, so all the foregoing projects are gonna be either frozen or postponed, so just an FYI.
Yeah. If they're offering funding, then I don't see a reason why the city shouldn't at least try, because if they're going to give funding to some city, then why not Birchwood Village, I guess, would be the question, right? But
Again, we're not going to go forward unless they
Yep,
fund it.
I mean, we need funding for this.
The
There's
state.
no point to do it. It's not in the budget
Right.
at the moment. I mean,
Nope.
but anyways, so at the last open house, we had some questions about, you know, why curb and gutter, why ditching. We've known that there's drainage issues across the whole city. I mean, I looked at a handful of them today even. So a little bit better example of the curb and gutter that we're looking at is more of a drive over curb. So if you can see my mouse, it's gonna be more drive over than what the B style will I showed last time. And I mean, we're not going everywhere, right? The drainage areas, they're not changing. And just for some examples, right? This is, the picture on the left is, I think it's a block and a half away from Birchwood Village. And then the picture on the right is right down the hill of an area that would benefit from having curb and gutter. There's, at the moment, how Wildwood sits, it drains right down the edge, and I mean, we've seen the erosion, right? We filled in the holes that it erodes away. That's all going to help with the curb and gutter, adding to it. We're not going to have to replace it every year, like the bituminous curb when it gets hit by a plow. You might have to replace it when we do mill and overlays, just spot replacement, right, of concrete cracking or we not. I mean, it's up to the city in that time, but that's just an example. We got some feedback last time of seeing an example of where it would benefit to have curb and gutter, right? So then we had quite a bit of feedback of ditching, right, and wanting to see what that would look like. And so, like in Oak Ridge Drive, it's going to be roughly a 3 to 4 foot bottom wide where we can fit it. It's all going to be, this is all just cookie cutter for you guys' reference. And a depth, anywhere from, this says 1.5 feet, but I did a half a foot. It's going to depend on, your slope and what volume we need to hold. But that's going to be roughly what the ditching looks like. I mean, we have it on cedar in spots. I did take a picture of Oak Ridge Drive, and this one could really go both ways. We could have ditching on each side of this, or we could have concrete curb and gutter to help get the drainage down there. So, and I think that's pretty much all I had to present.
Okay. Let's have Mr. Hildebrand there talk about the research he's done, and then we'll come and get your questions.
What are the boundaries of that project? And you have a picture of Oak Ridge Drive, but we don't know where is that on Oak Ridge Drive?
Roughly, it's at the end of the median, and then for Wildwood at least, all the way to the East County line. East County line, yeah. And then as far as the road right outside, same starting spot, and then go all the way to just short of Cedar. So we'd end at a spot where, specifically like right out front here, where it's gonna be close, where we're not shutting down Cedar or any of that traffic, but we're not gonna have to redig into either street really. More than 5-10 feet to then hook up to the water main and continue.
I'm going to back up and cover a little bit more of a holistic approach or educational, and fantastic job. Guys, when you plan projects, the problem is a lot of times we think this is our project, this is set in stone. And ultimately you have to be open-minded, you have to be flexible. So the plan which was presented from Bolton and Mink is, here's a problem, let's do our road rating system. And as we're doing our road rating system, what needs replaced this year? What needs next year? Is this Miller overlay? Is this a total replace? Exactly what was proposed. Our mayor was being open-minded, saying, well, wait a minute, what about these water line breaks? How can we help fund this? Because ultimately you need this capital improvement plan. You need to think about the big picture. This isn't just a road. What's underneath the road? Is it electric? Is it gas? Are there other issues? You know, right now, as you're well aware, you know, lead pipes that go up to your house are a big thing for the state. And ultimately, even as we step back and consider it, what options are there? Are there loans? Are there grants? You know, what is the state pushing? What is federal pushing? You have to be open-minded. You have to be flexible. So while a grant may be available this year, it may not be available next year. 3 years from now, it may be back. So we're presenting this tonight, but I don't want anybody scared of, oh, this has to follow through 100% as presented. We've got to be flexible because it may take 7-10 years to complete this. But ultimately, when you think about capital improvement plans and how do we want the city to look 10 years from now, ultimately, what do you want? Good roads. What do you want to know is underneath there? That your infrastructure, your water line pipes, they're not going to break for the next 100 years. Gas mains, that they're not going to tear up the road to replace a gas main, that electric is running there. So that's part of why we're here tonight, is to look at that holistic approach. So funding sources, as we go back, again, that's why you have staff. That's why you have your engineering staff. That's why you have city staff that's always out there looking for different funding sources. People change. You get different people in the state, you get different people in the federal, and different funding sources open up. So you may be at a deficit one year, the next year there may be a surplus, and it's being on top of that. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. So are there options? Can the city go and do this all in 1 year? No. That's something that would go in front of the voters, and absolutely, if we were going to do $11 million in 1 year, we would expect you to vote no. But do you want great roads? Do you want to know that your water is not going to break? Do you want to know that all this infrastructure is not going to be replaced right away? Absolutely. That's something that you deserve. You know, why do you love your community? Why do you want to be here for many years? Because you know that these are the basic amenities that we have to offer, and it makes sense. So that's why you have your engineers that have that open mind. That's why you have the mayor that's looking for what are some other funding options. You know, we're here to look at those funding options, to be open-minded. They may not always happen 1 year, and I've always told staff and other people I've worked with in the past, no doesn't mean no, never. It means no, we can't do it this year, but next year we can afford it. So ultimately, yeah, by presenting funding options and loans or whatever, there's the ability to bond for this, and it may be through an assessment. It may be something that is shared over time, that is paid for by each resident over the course of maybe 10 years. There's grants that we may get this grant this year, we may get this grant the next year. Ultimately, if you come back and you show one specific entity that, hey, we tackled this chunk this year, they will give you a second grant that next year. They will give you that second grant maybe that third or fourth year. So it's being creative. And ultimately, you've got to trust that your engineer's working for you, that staff is working for you. The city council is not going to just jump into this whole hog without having a plan as to how to pay for it. They live here as well, and they can't afford this any more than you can. But through that wise planning, through how can we properly fund this, how can this be great for everybody? So I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add other than, again, from outside experience, I think the mayor, the council have done a good job with looking at other options. Obviously, your engineer's done his due diligence. We're happy really to address any questions that you may have, but it's something that you have to be open-minded. You have to realize most ultimately that the plan's not set in stone, that what we may hope to accomplish this year may ultimately be 3 years down the line, but your ultimate goal is, one, to get rid of the lead water lines, to eliminate the water line breaks. You may not have leaking coming through there, but if you have old water lines, they're going to break eventually. I'd rather replace it with a water line that's going to last 100 years than a 60-year-old line that's going to, end up breaking and we have to tear open the road to fix that. So it's ways of just being smart about your planning. It's ways about thinking about your capital improvement plan for the city to invest those funds and reinvest those funds so that you can keep the city great.
Can I just interject a quick question? We're talking about the water main breaks. Is that because The pipe is old and it's failing? They can't hear you. Are the
So,
water mains breaking because it's old? Are the water mains breaking because they're failing due to age? Or are they failing because they're freezing or a variety of reasons?
water lines break for a variety of reasons. I won't speak for the engineer, but maybe it's age.
Sure.
You know, you have heave through the frost. You have a variety of things.
Sure.
so-
But understanding,
But-
understanding the broader picture about why we do this project and when we do the different projects for a small community like Birchwood, we need to understand a lot of those ancillary things. So if we're fixing water mains because they're old, mostly, like, is it be always, because they're failing, or are we fixing them because they're old?
I would say a variety of reasons, but what I will say is your new technology with the newer pipes that they have, they're meant to last many, many years. So through the heave, through the thaw, they're meant to last. I've been through the experience. I'm an attorney by nature. I'm an attorney by nature, and I've worked on many of these projects. I'll let the engineer answer if you like, but I've been through many of these projects over the past 20 years. Wastewater treatment, I can tell you all about that. Water treatment, I can tell you a lot about that. I'm always happy to talk about stuff.
I don't think it's a question.
Go ahead. You ask the question.
We have a question from John Anderson to White Pine Lane. We need a task force to work through what we really need and don't need, yet it seems like everyone is against this. Why? By the way, an open mic would be easier than these slips.
So yeah, we are going to form a task force if the council approves it.
What was the question?
The question was if we were going to form a task force. We will be forming a task force if the community determines that they would like to continue looking at this option. This is also from John Anderson. Why haven't we heard any costs, solid concrete costs yet? But it seems like we're close to being told all this is going to happen. As we've stated through the meeting, it's not a definite yet, so I'll answer that one. Another from John Anderson. Sewers are okay, water system is okay, roads need a lot of attention, but why do we need these huge expensive projects in this bad economy when nobody can afford them? I believe we're planning ahead is what we're trying to do here.
Also, it's cheap. Also, I'll just say it again. If we go with this original roads plan, it's going to cost us $11 million because there is no grant funding for replacement of roads. If we replace the water main, it's going to cost us $3 million because there are grants for replacement of water.
Did you look at not doing anything with the roads and not spending the money?
No, that we cannot do. You know, we're responsible for the infrastructure and to keep the city functioning, and so doing nothing is not an option.
Next question is why are we not seeking a second opinion? This is Tom Palsy, 1 Hall.
You know, let me get back to the funding also and the thinking ahead of time. Why I preach capital improvement plans is when you think about your personal finance, do you just go out and do you buy a vehicle and make payments, or do you plan on it ahead of time? A lot of cities don't have the ability to go in debt. They don't have the ability to get loans. So they save that $10,000 over the course of 4 years, whatever it may be, and then suddenly they can buy that new vehicle. And that's quite similar with road projects, with water lines, whatever. One thing the city has not done in the past is save money each year towards capital needs, and that's something that is very important. So it's important in this case to, while the economy may be bad, no matter the economy, you're always trying to save a little bit of money. Maybe when the economy's bad, you save less money, but ultimately you're trying to save a little bit so that when you need that, it is there, and it's not quite the hit of this cost. You're still looking for alternative funding through the grants and whatnot. Can you repeat it real quick?
Next one, I don't have a name on it, but 430.
Why aren't we seeking a second opinion?
When I get back to the second opinion, are you, what's your opinion? Are the roads great?
You're talking about doing things other than the roads, and additionally, you keep talking about grants,
How's
which
your water taste?
you don't have the grants yet, and yet you're talking about, well, even if we don't have the grants, that can change.
I'm asking two simple questions. Do you like the roads here?
The roads need to be fixed. But
Okay.
you're doing more than that.
Okay, no, okay, that's the first
You
one.
don't have the grants yet.
Do you love the drinking water here?
There's nothing wrong with the drinking water. Do you even live here?
Excuse me.
Hold
Nope.
Hold on,
Nope.
hold on.
No. We're not doing that.
No.
We are going to have civil discourse. You are not going to be yelling at, nope, no, you're not going to be yelling at our city employee.
What,
You need to be polite. You need to be polite. You need to be polite.
Craig, and my apologies, I don't want to come across as condescending. What I'm trying to make clear is we're coming up with a plan. Nobody is here tonight saying we are spending this money tomorrow. We are here saying we are applying for grants. We are saying here's an option. Here's a way that we can accomplish this, but we have to look at the holistic picture. If the city fixes the roads and all we do is fix the roads, $11 million. However, if the city looks at the holistic picture, if you look at 60-year-old water pipes that are going to break, that need fixed, not just water pipes, or gas pipes, maybe it's phone lines, maybe it's whatever, that's all under there. We fix the base, we go up, we fix our roads, it's going to be much less expensive. This will last many, many more years. We're trying to be wise with this. We're not saying we're going to spend the money now. We're saying we're applying for grants. We're looking for options. So, no, we're not spending the money now. We're looking at options.
I can address the portion about a second opinion. When we actually go out to request bids for things, we get options. We've never, ever done one option for fixing anything. It's an estimate for sure at this point, but if we haven't decided if we're even going to apply for the grants and we don't know if we're going to get those, if we apply for the grants, we don't get the money, we're not proceeding.
What's the cost all in on the application, on the grant application? What kind of money are we talking about for the backdrop of what we've seen presented here and all the work that's been done? How much are we into this?
Let me get this recorded here. So John is asking what is the cost for actually doing the grant portion?
Right now, how much are we into this?
What have we spent?
Into this or the grant application? Two questions, I guess.
Sure, both, be great.
Okay. Into this, I don't have, to me, I guess, I haven't calculated my hours. But for the grant application, Rice Creek is, the grant itself maybe takes about an hour. They then, upon looking at your application, they ask for modeling and stuff like that, and you'd be looking at maybe a day's worth of work, roughly. And then for PFA funding, that application, there's two of them, each take about half hour a piece, so an hour total. So like $150 for the two PFA applications, and then
Jennifer, I'm just gonna, may I borrow the mic for a minute? Because I know this is Mary Wingfield, 730 Birchwood Avenue, and I know you started out the meeting saying it would be $11 million to fix our roads. And, I mean, you and I ran on that issue, and my idea was to pave them all at once, and your campaign said, hey, if Mary does it her way, it's gonna be $700,000. If you add up the numbers on Marcus's reports, it's $120,000, $150,000, $168,000, $122,000, $94,000, $99,000, $99,000 for the next 10 years. That's $857,000. It's not $11 million. And then 10 years out, you've got Hall Cedar being repaired 1 year, $400,000, and then it's going to be repaired again the next year, the same next year for another $400,000, which I really don't understand. Even giving you all that, you're only looking at 1.5 mil. So it's not an $11 million project to go and overlay the roads, and I need to correct that now because it's skewing everything.
I can touch on that. So the budget was really low when we created this. So we have come up with a plan to work within the budget, because that's what the last council asked for. But a mill and overlay is only going to last 10 years, right? So after 10 years, kind of like how we talked about this past year, that road is going to have to be fully reconstructed. So where Jennifer was going with that is the numbers show, right, and the CIP plan, that is giving us time to start coming up with these bigger plans to fully replace roads, right? I mean, mill and overlays, your cracks show within a couple of years, because it goes right through the pavement. That's just how the asphalt works, right? So even though the numbers only show that, it's a bigger picture, right? That's how far out the city is, because we don't have the proper budgeting to maintain these roads. Every community I work with right now, we're working on continuing this, right? I know a couple of townships right over that 50 miles, they are really bad too. These roads are digressing in a quicker rate than what cities and townships have planned for. And that's with Birchwood, that's with every community in this area, because it develops so fast.
All right. Next one is Kathy, I'm going to butcher your last name, Levies, 3 Oak View Court. If pipes are not bad, is this necessary? It seems like a solution looking for a problem.
I can touch on that. So I think, and I don't know if I think we roughly spend $30,000 a year on brakes, maybe. I could be wrong about that. But so, say we spend $30,000 a year on brakes. Well, what's it going to be in 5 years down the road? It's probably going to double. If a water main lasts on average 80 years, whatever number you want to go with, right? Just like your high school classmates, right? Some are gonna drop off at 20 years, 40 years. Water main's no different. Like,
Have we studied that? Have we looked at the last 10-year record on water main breaks?
I don't think the last
And
10.
the frequency?
I don't think the
Has that
city has
increased?
taken that good of notes in the last 10 years.
The city doesn't have any records available
No.
to us, but the last 3 years.
Yeah, I do have the data for the last 3 years. I had Therese pull it up for me, and it's approximately 2 to 3 water main breaks a year, costing about $30,000 just to fix the break itself, 15 each break. And then there's axillary damage as well. For example, we just had a resident's driveway that was undercut when the water came through, when the main when the main broke. So we had to go ahead and backfill that. And the break that was on 120 on County Line Road there, when that broke in the winter, left a huge hole. So now we're responsible also for fixing that. So it's not just the break, it's also all the other damage it does that we are responsible for. Yeah, but hold on. I'm sorry. I'm talking to this man right here.
15 grand each is what you're just.
Approximately, yes.
Thank you.
John can
You're
speak
welcome.
to all that information for the past
So-
10, 20 years.
Yeah,
John
that-
knows about all the different breaks we've had. and
That
what they
data's
cost.
available.
Has anyone looked into how it will fund how we'll fund what if no state federal money available?
Then we don't proceed. We've answered it. Then we don't proceed. We've answered that.
Who determined that we need new water mains plastic?
With the new
Grab the
mains
mic,
being
Laura,
made
grab the
out
mic.
What would the new mains be made out of, and are we guaranteed that they won't break?
Yeah, the mains haven't been decided yet. We haven't got that far into design, but it would either be ductile or PVC. Those are the two that are.
PVC, I thought that was bad for you. I thought it was illegal in some places. Don't we have iron now? Isn't that what it is? What is it now made out of?
Currently,
Yeah.
ductile iron. Ductile iron.
And that's supposed to last how long?
Well, it depends on what study you look at, right? I've been told that they're expecting 80 to 100 years, but it depends on what study you look at.
Okay.
Has it been studied and compared to other infrastructure needs for Birchwood? I believe that's why we're having the meeting, is to determine infrastructure in general. So I'll answer that one. Has task force residents and volunteers been utilized, vetted? That would be if we are interested in proceeding, we would be creating a task force for sure. If needed, who would move on it? Has RFP been sent out? And 3 to 4 different engineers. No, we haven't done an RFP yet because we don't know if we're proceeding. What are the competing bids? Something, again, it will determine we'll get bids once we start moving forward, if we do. We have one from Bill Hulisk, 290 J Street. What is the expected remaining life of our existing system? If we did 1962, it would be 40 years from then, so we'd be at about 22 years. 80 is the low end, right? So you don't plan for the longest time, you plan for the shortest. So that would be 80 years.
So one thing too, the 80 to 100 years, that's studies that I've seen at least. Those are for 8-inch water mains. So the background to that, the larger water
We
mains
don't have
go.
that.
Yeah, the longer the life lasts. Birchwood's is 6.
6 inch. Ours
So-
is a 6-inch versus 8-inch.
Yep.
which is-
So the worst case scenario, according to the studies I've seen, is 20 years at the water main. That 25% of the water main breaks. Between 20 and 40 years. And then beyond that, the 50% percentile is at 50 to 80 years. So that's, your majority. And then, or the next 25%, sorry. 25% after that would be, the next 20 years. So that is something that too has been left out, that 80 to 100 years is for 8-inch water main, and Birchwood Village is 6-inch. So it's a shorter life expectancy.
Just so you guys know, Marcus can get us that information, and if there's additional information you guys want in the packet that we're going to send to everybody, we can definitely add it.
All right, the second question on this one is what is expected life of new pipe? It would still be the 80 to 100 years.
PVC, they don't know the life expectancy of it yet because it hasn't been around, but they're expecting 100 years or more. But ductile iron has been around a long time, so they are pretty confident in that. One thing, too, is when the water main was installed in the 60s, from what I've been told, is they didn't backfill how they do now today. So how it's required today is it has to be all the way up to sand, well above the water main, and that kind of helps eliminates the breaks. So if you dig it up today, I don't know, John would know what's down there today. But a lot of times, you get rocks pushed up against it. It could be anything, right? I've dug through holes that, there's houses buried. We found a hotel in Anoka that was buried last fall, actually. So, there's a lot more regulation that goes into what can be in the ground, and that also has shown to help the life expectancy as well.
All right, next one is, has a financial plan been done? Has it been, how is it to be financed? Mostly grants is our hope. Who has determined we need this to be done? Has there been a task force? Have we gotten a second or third opinion? All will be done as we go. That's Noel. Let's see. This is not for tonight, so that's why I'm not reading it. How about another? I assume that's going to be opinion. I'm not sure.
I mean, you guys had your sanitary sewer relined, but water main cannot be relined, no.
Next one is Ruth Jensen. How is need for new mains assessed? Financial analysis, including cost of money.
Can you ask that question one more time? I missed it.
How is need for new main assessed? Financial analysis, including cost of money.
Have we gotten that far? I don't think that we have. I mean, tonight's more about, is the public open to this project, or are we shutting it down right away? And that's ultimately, we have to go through funding for this. The city doesn't have the money at the moment, so.
Number 2 is how is bid contractor chosen? We do RFPs for everything when we do bids. Number 3, does city engineer receive any money from anyone other than the city before or after project decisions? We hire the engineer to do work for us. We pay engineer for said work. I'm not sure what that question is asking, though. I'm sorry. Is Ruth still here? Okay. I'm not sure. Next one is 711 Hall Avenue. What are the areas of pipe that require constant fixing, and what are the consequences, reasons for those areas breaking, and costs to repeatedly fix? What is life expectancy of replacement? I think we touched on life expectancy of replacement. Just in the last 4 years, I know we've had cedar several spots along this hill break, and then directly in front of the hall broke. White pine, and there was another one on Wildwood, a fairly large one that took almost a full day to shut down.
Wasn't this a gas line too?
Yeah, this was a gas line too. It was all the underneath the parking lot actually all got washed out underneath there, which is why we had that hole for a while.
Do you know why we're having repeated things at the same place, like what's going on that's causing these repeatedly break? Sorry.
I'm just curious if we know the reasons why those areas are repeatedly breaking. And thank you for all the work here.
Yes.
I just want to say that. Thank you.
John, maybe? John, maybe would know, I guess. John, do you have an answer to that?
John, you want to answer?
Not necessarily for the breaks. I've been doing this for in and around Birchwood since 1965 when it was installed. And the breaks are pretty erratic, sometimes up on Jay, sometimes up on Oak Ridge, sometimes more often on Wildwood. We've had like 3 along East County Line in the last 40 years. It's not consistent in the same place. It's a variety. We really can't tell you where. We talk about the old pipes, but I tapped a water main from 1801. That's old. So cast iron is pretty good. We do have cast iron pipes in the city, not ductile iron. Cast iron was the standard in 1964, 65 when these lines were installed, and the same thing along Oak Ridge in the 70s. But they're not consistent breaks in any certain place.
Next one is, could you bury phone lines when you do the streets and get rid of telephone poles?
We are going to look into that. I know that's a concern for people on Wildwood, and yeah, I've talked to a couple of people about that, and I think what was the cost, like $200,000 or something like that. So electrical, yeah. So we can, like Marcus said, we can explore that if we go forward.
I actually can answer a portion of this as well. 2 years ago, I had talked to XL Energy regarding burying electrical lines because we were having, after that winter where all the trees were breaking, they do not do that unless you are replacing the roads, and they get permission to do it because it's too expensive for them to do it. So if we are replacing big portions of the roads, they would come in and assess what, or determine what that cost would be. Not necessarily assess, because that's actually saves them money as well, not sending people out. But you cannot have them quoted at all until they've actually had a chance to look at it. So that's the info from 2 years ago when we were having the 60 inches of snow. Full depth rehabilitation is not common on residential class roads based on your data collection and PCI. Is there really a justification for more than mill and overlay? I believe we were told when we were doing the road robotics 2023 August, so about 2 years ago, the life expectancy for a road in general is about 70 years total. Our roads have been milled and overlaid quite often, so the life expectancy for the total roads, if we are needing to replace the whole road, it will potentially last approximately 70 years. Is that right?
40.
40 years. Justification for more than mill and overlay, I assume it's because that lasts 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, mill and overlays last 10 years. So even at the surface, well, you see the cracks, but mill and overlays generally, I mean, they last 10 years. Now you might have exemptions of that, but the part that you're not seeing is asphalt has layers underneath. That first, second, depending on how many overlays are, those bottom layers, they're eroding, and all those cracks are showing right through. And you might not see every single crack, but if you add up the cost of what it takes to mill and overlay a road, you're saving money by just full rehabilitating it in some cases. So I know the study I most recently just did, anything beyond 39 years, it was we only looked at reclaim, reshape, repave, and that was by the township's decision, not by our recommendation. So just for reference, I guess. So that even though what you're seeing on those maps, that's not telling the full true story. That's just giving us an idea without going out there and physically taking cores.
So what's the maintenance cost if you give an overlay to maintenance of streets?
Let me repeat that for you, John. So he was saying, what's the maintenance cost for maintaining the roads? What we currently have planned, you mean? That we don't have a maintenance plan right now.
Yeah, I think we're here today because they haven't been maintained. So what's on the first 2 pages, that's what we're gonna do. That's what was approved last year to do to just keep the city going along. But then in the next upcoming years, that's when we're gonna be looking at the full reconstructions, whether it's a reclaim, reshape, repave, or if we're looking at a larger project or not. So like in Oak Ridge Drive, to mill and overlay that, we're looking at $100,000. It would probably be $400,000 to $500,000 for reclaim, reshape, repave, I would guess, for a project that size.
So, and have you looked at the plan, for example, and the bring out the hoods there's about a 20%, 15 to 20% sunk cost. So every year if you bring them up, that's 50 and 20% added to the budget. If you do a one all-around repair, and we get a bond, a municipal bond for 3%, that's pretty much close to the inflation. You wouldn't have to raise anything, and we can actually just pay it over the next. An average muni would be like 15, 20 years. So for 3% right in the current interest rates, we could pay it off versus every year what we do is it's like think about build one side of your house, next you build another house, then the third year, once you do the whole thing, it will be one mess, and then you don't have to deal with every single year.
You
You're
do
gonna
like
do.
a comprehensive plan.
Correct. Have you looked at that?
Good question. Yeah. So, if you repair them all in one shot, you can take a bond out for it. By the time the bond's over, you'd be looking at doing another bond to repair the whole road. So by doing chunks of it, you can keep that budget or that maintenance within city budget, and you're not having to go out and get bonds. You're doing parts of it. So as Oak Ridge Drive starts needing repairs, okay, well, the rest of the city is doing okay. We're going to do the repairs of that. Then you're moving to the next phase. That's generally, as far as the communities that I've seen, that's how we have done it. Now, I know of a city in southwest Minnesota that did do the whole city, full reconstruct everything. They were really bad, and they drove on gravel roads for 4 years. And I don't want to propose that to Birchwood Village because I don't think people want to drive on gravel roads. But ultimately, yeah, it's that life expectancy. You don't want all roads to come in and need to be repaired in one shot. You want to piece it out a little bit.
Yeah, I understand that is perfect, but yeah, I understand that. But the thing is, when you look at all the roads, none of them use the same frequency. So if you look at Cedar, maybe Whitewood, they are the most frequent, versus the other streets that's falling apart, they would not be utilized as much. I mean, 5 residents versus probably 100 outside people driving on Cedar daily.
Yeah.
So that would be a difference. In terms
Yeah, and that's kind of why we have different plans for each road too, is because not every road needs the same maintenance, right?
All right. In the current funding environment, can we really rely on grants? I would not count on it even for grants already awarded. Absolutely true. Don't know. I know we have the EPA grant that's going for the lift station. We are hoping it will still be there. That's all we can do at this point. Would a phased water main replacement coupled with mill and overlay make more sense? Maybe a mile per phase. Sorry. Current cast iron 6-inch is serviceable, so maybe 10 to 15 year phased plan makes sense. Yes, so this plan is for over 10 to 15 years to replace that. Last one we have is Mary Wingfield, 730. I have a series of questions for the engineer.
You know, I appreciate all your time, and it just seems to me to be very helpful, again, that we have a group of people who actually can analyze this and come up with a comprehensive recommendation to the city. There's so many questions to ask. But let me start with the engineer. I'm willing to take your 10 years on a mill and overlay for whatever it is. I know we've gotten 50 years out of Hall Avenue. I've gotten 15 years out of Cedar Street, whatever. But let's talk about the service lines, and I want to talk about the grants. So the grants are being allowed or provided to us because they want to remove the lead that goes from the main to the house, right?
No, they want to eliminate the unknown. So in Birchwood Village, the services, since they're put in the 60s, the records weren't as what they are today, so they don't have a material. And
so
I can finish quick. That we did the service records at the house this past year. Well, over the last 6 months, I don't know who made the decision, but someone within the Department of Health or the federal level decided that that's good information, but that isn't going to be enough. So now they've switched to funding where if they're funding a project, it's the whole service, the whole way. They want to know material, they want to have it listed. And if we don't do projects for this, there'll be projects, like I said earlier, of checking curb stops. So what we did last year didn't do a whole lot of good.
Okay, so whatever's on the web in terms of when you look at the website and says, here's a lead pipe, it needs to be replaced, and you can look at that at an interactive map, you're saying don't rely on what's on the internet in terms of what needs to be replaced.
You're right in the sense that the lead pipes need to be replaced, so to galvanize, but now they're going one step further and saying any unknowns that are on the GIS map need to be replaced is their stance.
So looking at that information on the map, you were the agency or the company that went in and looked at everybody's service line as it entered their house to determine what the material was, right?
I think between me and John, yeah.
Did you do it?
I didn't go any specific houses, no.
Okay.
I just know the system, having been, I've been on pretty much most of the houses in Birchwood and know what's there, so I just know from history.
Okay. So on the interactive map, we show absolutely no lead service lines from the main to the house in any of the houses here. You recognize that?
I believe so, yeah.
And then we show 9 galvanized pipes going from the service line to the water main to the houses, right? 9 of them?
That we see in the house, yeah, yep.
Okay, so, and EPA wants to remove the galvanized for whatever reason. We're not going to argue with them. That needs to be gone. And then we have a certain number of unknowns. You can figure out the unknowns if you go to the house, right?
Not by their regulations anymore, no.
John, can you figure out the unknowns if you go to the house?
I can.
Okay, so I actually looked at the map and to find out how many houses had galvanized, which ones were they. And the first one that came up on the map was 293 J Street. That's my area, not a very old house. I asked the neighbor to go take a picture of that, and it said it was galvanized on the map. John, did you get a picture of that? 293 J Street? That's Brenda Tofty's. We sent that to you yesterday.
I saw the picture.
Yeah, was the line galvanized or copper? Copper. All right, and we did that again for 538 Hall. That, even though it was listed as galvanized, right? And we did, yeah, and we did that for 430 Wildwood, and that again is not galvanized. It's all right. So, and you just did that tonight for 203 Birchwood, right?
That's
Right. So now we've got 9 service lines that were supposed to be replaced, and it turns out they're copper. And John can figure out the other ones that are unknown. And John, you don't think there's any lead pipe in Birchwood, right?
There's no lead in Birchwood.
So if we can verify that we don't need to replace the service lines because all the lines are good, Kathy, you may have one that's galvanized. You come up on the list as well. Okay. So we may be talking about 5 homes that need new service lines and nothing more. And we're going to get a $13 million grant. So here's my concern is I don't know how the state can do that when they say that there's a census block group service line replacement priority rating. And Birchwood rates low because that's on the same internet site. And the reason why we rate low is because there's no elevated blood level and we don't have any people with a income of under 200% poverty level. One of the other analyses, you agree with that, right? We're rated low for priority for getting a grant?
I mean, I believe you.
Okay. So in addition, the other thing that goes to priority is whether the community needs financial assistance. And you know this city doesn't have any debt, right?
I'm not in charge of the city's financials, I guess.
Okay, we don't have any debt. So the point being that you have a $13 million project to replace 5 galvanized lines. Can a resident opt out? Because I have copper right now. Can I opt out of saying I don't want my line replaced?
I'm sure, yeah.
Because, you know, for the first time tonight, I heard you folks say that this is going to be a plastic pipe. Both as the water main and then the people who are getting new service to their houses, right?
I think that I said that the material hasn't been decided yet, if I recall. I said plastic and ductile.
I heard plastic from you, I guess, Madam Mayor, when I talked with you. So I was really concerned about it because I think people really need to know that's a potential issue. Because, okay, so if we go with this route of now getting this subsidy for everybody in our town to get a new line from their house to the street, if someone had a problem with their service line today, it'd be a good time to upgrade and get it done for free, right?
They could apply for funding, yeah.
Well, no, this is something that the government will pay 100% of those costs to pay for the new line from the house to the street, right?
I
The
think
government wants these lines gone, so they're willing to pay
I
for
think
that.
I just said that they could apply for funding today. Yeah.
And it's government, and it has to be done through the city, because it's not available through for private people. You understand that?
I don't think that we said that tonight.
It's on the website. You wouldn't doubt that, would you?
If you,
I do. So if the homeowner has been unable or unwilling to fix the problem that has been going on for a number of years, they would save what, John? $8,000 to $10,000 on a service line replacement? All right. And so if that person would save $10,000, that'd be a heck of a deal for that person, wouldn't it? To get a free one and avoid the cost of their own repairs.
there wasn't a question there.
So here's my concern, is that you're aware that there's one house in Birchwood that has a continually freezing pipe that the owner doesn't want to or hasn't decided to, or the pipe has not been repaired in the 30 years that this has been going on. You're aware of there's one residence in this town that would benefit specifically for having their service line replaced.
I guess.
Yeah, so the point being, you're aware of that because the person came to the city this winter, and that person happens to be on the council. Are you aware of that? And so that would be a big conflict that we'd all want to know about, that somebody's going to benefit from a process such as this, and they get a benefit, and we don't need it replaced, but somebody on the council can vote this through and get a benefit. Are you aware of that? That's a conflict.
To be honest, Mary, I thought you were talking about yourself
No.
this whole time.
No. 138 Wild. I do. Let's talk about the water main replacement, and it comes out of the drinking water fund, or the revolving drinking water fund through the Minnesota Department of Health, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that includes 80% federal monies and 20% state matching funds, if you will, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I looked online yesterday, and WSB has a very helpful memo that says that those loans, that's monies that we get. Say we get the $13 million. That's a loan that we get, and that when we finish the project, then we go back and get another grant to pay off the loan. So we have to invest in $13 million and hope that the government doesn't renege on that grant and left holding the bag on $13 million, because we won't know until we finish the project. Do you realize that?
I don't think that we've gotten through the nitty gritty of the funding.
So here's that's the problem. So
We haven't applied for funding because we are just at the planning stage.
I think people in this room get it, is that now, in this day and age, nobody knows where money's coming from. We don't know if it's coming for the lift station, and we don't know if it's coming for the water main. But here's the deal. Get back to what you said about we can overlay in another 10 years. Here's what's interesting about that revolving fund. If you've had a chance to look at it, maybe you haven't, you can look at the long-term goal, number 4, on their reports that say, we want to manage the assets of the fund in perpetuity so that there is a permanent resource to assist public systems in the state, public water systems in the state. So that means we can go ahead and do what we were going to do now, and in 10 years, we can come back here. The federal government be a heck of a lot more stable than it is now. We can get our funding money, and we can say, I'm comfortable with that. But we don't have to do anything right now because our water mains are already in good shape. We're all in agreement. They're at 60 years old, and they'll go to 80, maybe 100 if we're good. Who knows? But we don't have to tick this box because we're not being forced to say we got to hurry up and get that money or it's gone. It's a perpetuating, revolving account, which is huge. So I will tell you this: that Minnetrista is number 981 out of 1,000 requests for water mains. 981. They want to replace their water mains at $4.5 million. We're in the same boat as Minnetrista. They're rich, we're rich. They need to replace their water mains, but they're at the bottom of the heap. We're not going anywhere on this very fast because we don't qualify. And how you decide if you qualify is really simple. Let me ask you a question first. Have we put in the grant process for the PPL application? That's the project priority list. Have we put that in?
I think that this is why we're here tonight, to see if the city wants us to apply for funding or not.
I wanted to ask that because the deadline was May 2nd of last week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've already started the process to say we're going to go for a grant. Okay, I think people need to know that's happening. One of the things that then happens once you submit that application is you have a priority point worksheet, and the project must address existing problems directly and be assigned a point. So one of the first things that they're going to ask is the issue that was brought up in the city's email on April 11th to say our waters are unreliable. The standard for unreliable in that report is the water supply is unable to consistently provide for domestic water demand, excluding industrial and commercial use. So John, do we have a situation where we're consistently unable to provide domestic water demand?
We've always got water.
Everybody get water today?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I think we're there. I think we're consistent. No.
What is the question?
Okay, so I'm just bringing up some information. Another claim. This is important for people to know. This is important for people to know.
This is a time to ask Marcus questions.
Right. I'm asking if he's aware of that.
We're willing to listen.
I just want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to talk.
Okay, so the next thing that they're going to give you points for is whether this upgrade is essential for public health. And that, again, was mentioned in the city's April 11th email. So if something's going to be a danger to public health, it's because there's waterborne disease, nitrites, contamination, having a boiled water notice in the last 3 years. John, have we had any of those issues in the last 3 years?
No, not in the last 6 years.
Okay, so we have a healthy public water supply.
As far as the state of Minnesota is concerned.
Okay, good. So the other thing is that water mains are a costly burden. We've talked about that. We had 2 breaks per year. John, as the American Water Works average standard, is that a high number for a system this big, or is that a low number for the number of breaks per year?
My understanding is low. Whitebear had 28.
Okay.
It's had 2 for the average over the last year.
Based on a percentage, though, number, because we have 300 houses, Whitebear's slightly larger.
Slightly. Birchwood had 0.
Okay, so there was a talk about leaks. I guess I heard tonight that there's no leaks, so I'm not going to get into that because we don't have any leaks. That's another thing they're looking for. We don't have any leaks. We'll check that box and move on. Water main pressure. So water main pressure, are you aware what that number is for PSI?
John's the one that manages the water main.
John, 75 PSI?
Roughly 75.
Okay.
Wait a second. There are homes in Birchwood that don't have, they have issues with water pressure.
Are they down by me?
Yes.
Right. Right. So we know that there's 4 homes in Birchwood that have a Birchwood address that have low water pressure. Are you aware of that?
That was not brought to my attention, no.
Okay. But Ron knows it, I know it, Fleck knows it. So the point being, those people all have monometer water. Are you aware of that?
You tell me today.
Yeah. So they're not in our system. So they and Monomedi just put a new yes. Yeah. And so Monomedi just put in a new water main break a couple of years ago, right?
They put in a new water main break?
I'm sorry. New water main in that area, didn't they?
I'm not their city engineer, I guess.
I will tell you they did, having lived in that area for a long time. So you're not asking us to upgrade our system with new water mains and new service lines to every house because of a problem that exists in Monomedi, right? Though that Monomedi stuff is not relevant to us, right? That's not relevant to our plans and what we should do with our water, right? Why are you asking Marcus these questions? I'm just asking because it was brought up. It was brought up in the email that said this is why we need new water mains, and the question is need. That's really why we're here. It's the need, and it doesn't.
Can I adjust that?
Yes.
Can I have
All right. But let me finish up, and then you can have it. So the thing that I will also mention tonight is for the first time you brought up PVC pipe. We talked about that. It might be HDP, right? If you
Not
Google-
HDP, that's not illegal material for your water main, but
Okay, so PVC would be it.
C900 class, actually, to be specific,
Okay.
but
So if you Google plastic water pipes, They say they're safe, but they're continuing to research it. So we've been told that with regard to PFAs. They're in the news of late, and we now realize they're dangerous. We've been told that with regard to plastic water bottles, that they're safe. Now we know otherwise. We've been told that with regard to Teflon. We've been cooking on that. Now we find otherwise. We've been told that with regard to cooking with gas in our kitchens. We've been told about that's no longer good for us. I'm telling you, I don't want to be a guinea pig. I don't want to turn our nice Ford truck into a Yugo for water mains. I want something that's solid and reliable for something that is going to be toxic going forward. Don't want to do that, and that's, I think, a really important thing, because when I've talked with people around town, they're kind of aghast that we would go to plastic. I think the city needs to look into that.
Asked what materials we used now for water mains. He said ductile iron and PVC are the two materials that are used. He never said that we were going to use PVC for anything.
I heard PVC.
Because he was asked what materials are used for water mains. He said ductile iron and PVC.
But you had said that we're not going to have any more breaks, and so the ductile iron, if you replace it with ductile iron, you'll continue to get breaks, won't you? Okay.
I think I already hit that.
Yeah.
And
So
then
here's
followed
the
very
bottom
fast.
line. Here's the bottom line I want to make a comment on. This is a really expensive project, and at least one person on the council will benefit from it. The city engineer is going to benefit from it. It's just a fact of life. And the city is relying on that. And we don't even have proper documentation of what actually we have in our town right now with regard to the service lines that go out to the mains, that they're wrong in even their initial analysis. So that obviously needs to be redone. This is a situation that calls for an independent analysis. It calls for a group of people who are really interested in this in our community to help. And it's really sad that we'd be looking to take $13 million, $14 million from the state of Minnesota, where there are legitimate communities where kids need help for not drinking out of leaded pipes and not having to have safe water. And that bothers me, and I hope it bothers everyone else, because that's not what we should be doing with the general welfare of our community. So in light of this, I'm asking that there be a task force and let the residents have a voice in light of the information that I think they need to know, that I spent a day looking at, trying to figure that out for tonight. And I think we can do a lot together, but it's going to take a lot of time. So I appreciate you letting me say that.
How much does the city engineer benefit from? How much does he benefit?
Appreciate all your research. Thank you for sharing that with us. I've been cut off. Thank you for sharing that with us. I don't know why this has to be contentious. We were talking about repairing the roads, and I'm going to get back to that again. This all came about because we were looking at the road repairs and how much it's going to cost residents. We were looking for a more cost-effective way to get the roads done. And the way that we could do that is by replacing the water mains. Now, most cities, the standard is that they have a capital improvement plan. Most cities have capital improvement plans. Birchwood does not. Birchwood has not had a capital improvement plan for as far back as I can see. Spoken with former mayors here. They have no idea if there's been capital improvement plans, which tells me that there hasn't been. Because there has not been a capital improvement plan in place for the last 40, 50 years, whatever, the city's infrastructure does not have a plan going forward, like a cycle of this is what we do to maintain what we have in the city. We don't have a plan like that. Most cities do. Most cities plan 20 years down the road and say, okay, we're going to do this portion of the city this year, save money. Next year, we do the next portion, following a plan, like you would for your house. If you know your roof is 25 years old, you know you're going to need a new roof in the next 5 years or so, and you're going to plan for it. This city hasn't done that. We have not taken care of what we have here. I live here. I pay taxes. I'm willing to spend money to fix our city. The way we can get around paying for it for new roads out of our pockets is to get the new water main. We're going to need it eventually. We're 60 years into an $80 year lifespan on a water main. We have 20 more years left. Are we not going to even address it? We're just going to kick the can down the road for the next person that comes up here and tries to, make the city better? Is that what we're going to do? Just keep on kicking the can down the road. That is not how you should run a city responsibly. It is not fair to the residents. That is not good governance. It is not good governance. The people that you elect care about the city. They are responsible for taking care of you and for taking care of the city. Eventually, things wear out. You know that. You know you have to replace things in your house. A city is no different. We're going to have to deal with it, whether we deal with it this year, or whether we deal with it in 10 years, or whether we deal with it in 20 years. It's going to have to be dealt with.
So will we all be dealing with it?
So I'm going to pass the mic around.
I was just wondering then, do we have, this was back to my husband Joseph's question. Do we have like a 50-year comprehensive projected road plan? I wasn't here a lot last year. I was traveling a lot, but it sounds like you're doing something with the roads. But from the little I've seen, it seems like kind of a mishmash thing, like you're just trying to do something short term, but it doesn't look like you have a long-term plan. And can't you do something like get a really long-term, project over 50 years, this is how much it's all going to cost, and then get some sort of long-term bid to work with one company to do it all and get the costs kind of controlled up front? Can't you, instead of doing these little this, that, like Lori's building onto her house a new thing every year, something like that. It's kind of expensive. It gets kind of expensive. It doesn't seem like that's a comprehensive plan. And so is there any kind of comprehensive plan?
So
And is this a priority of all the other needs in Birchwood, and what are the other needs? How does this rate? What other things are happening that we should be aware of?
So Scott can maybe touch a little bit on the legality of it, but in the past, one contractor did the maintenance. From my understanding, this is before my time within Birchwood. I don't. Beyond that, that's as much as I know. I asked that contractor, who is no longer in business, or they switched names, whichever. But if they had records or anything that the city could look at, because to my knowledge, the city didn't have anything as far as what's been done, other than invoices maybe. But so, like I said earlier, this is the start, right, of just trying to get it going while we can see how quick these roads are breaking down, as we're kind of actually starting to take a little bit more notes and stuff like that. But as far as your comment about one contractor doing everything, $175,000 is your cap of being able to go for quotes to bids. And so the quoting is you send it to select contractors. Anything above that has to be closed, sealed bids. You don't know who's bidding on it. Everyone has to submit it by the same time. On a comprehensive plan like that, I don't imagine that you can get away with that. But
It's really expensive to do all these little bits and pieces and then change the plan and update it this year, and it doesn't seem like it's really well thought out. Just for my background, I work in a completely different business.
It is well thought out, because you can't put that burden on the community all at once. I think where the disservice occurred is, like you said, this is our start. This is what our plan is. The disservice is the past 10, 20, 50 years when there hasn't been this plan that's been followed. Oh, the roads are good, we don't need to tax, we're fine. You need to plan each year. You need to budget each year. If you're doing home improvements, you know that you've got a roof that's going to go out. I need to start saving for that roof so I can afford that. You don't just in 1 year cover that. And again, like we've said, nothing is being spent tonight. Nothing may be spent next year. but here's our plan, here's our option. We're coming up not just with a project, not just with a vision of here's streets, 1, 2, 3, 4 years, what we can fix. Here's water mains, 1, 2, 3, 4 years, what we can fix. It's also how can we fund? So it gets back to that holistic approach. All this is transparent. It goes out to bid. The council's gonna be very transparent with, we're gonna do this, we're gonna not. If the bid doesn't come back where it needs, or the funds aren't there, maybe the grant's not there, the project's not gonna be done. But if it all comes together and we can continue that and we can continue with that plan, then it's gonna make sense. And then it's gonna roll into 30 years down the line when that road needs repaired again. We've already got the funds there, and you keep that vision, you keep that momentum. So that capital improvement plan was ultimately gonna build upon itself. But this is the start. This is start with one. We're trying to rectify a situation that's been wrong for many years. This is kind of our plan. This is the vision.
Thanks.
What is your name?
I'm Scott Hildebrand.
Scott. My name is Lori Carter. I live 210 Birch Street. Thank you for the information. Mary, thank you for the information. I thought it was very helpful. I was not at the last meeting. I have quickly been brought up to speed as much as one can. I will say a few things. One, you kept saying open-minded, keep an open mind. I've lived here for 20 years, and I think this is the most open-minded community I've ever lived in. So I want to acknowledge my neighbors and my friends. It's a very conservative community. We are a small community. We have to be very mindful of this kind of spending. It's not contentious. It's just looking to find the best answers with the best, most well-informed group of people, not just a couple people, but a well-informed, you did a great job. No one's doubting that. I don't have a question, I have a comment. And I do have one comment in respect to what was done in the past. There was money set aside, and I'm not going to debate that, but we've run very well, very, very well. And yes, our roads need some work, and maybe the water mains need some attention. I'm not sure about that. All I would like to comment is we should proceed with extreme caution. I hear what you're saying, this is just a grant, but it does put enormous fear, apprehension in my mind about grants and going forward, and you might get it and you might not get it. That's a huge concern for a little village. So what I'd like to just say is proceed with extreme caution and get a group together and make sure that everyone's informed. Everyone wants to everyone in this room, whether you agree or disagree with you or whoever, we want to take care of this place. This is a precious place, we'd all agree. Nobody wants anything to happen. But it's a lot of money. And so I just want to make sure that you hear me, and I know some of my friends, and let us work together to get the right information. I think we see there's some information that we didn't have before that is helpful to know tonight. Let's get all the information and let's get a group together and let's do the very best thing for this village. And I appreciate the work all of you have done. It's important. I feel like I'm Norma Ray right now, but I feel like we love this place, and let's work together and let's not argue. It's not an arguable thing. It's what is the best thing and what is it going to take to get that done. So thanks.
I think we all agree on that.
10 more minutes. Did anybody else want to speak?
I'm John Anderson. I live on 2 White Pine Lane. We've been here for about 33 years. And the reason we moved here is because we like the rural feel. We like the roads the way they are. If I wanted concrete gutters and curbs and stuff like that, I'd move to St. Paul or Minneapolis. I don't like either of those cities. I spent 30 years in St. Paul, and I just like the feel of the city. I like the people. In 2012, the city council created a roads committee, and Tom and I were both on the original roads committee. And the roads were, anybody that's lived here a long time, knows that the roads back then were in pretty bad shape. And we got really creative with, you know, hopscotching here and there and patching this and patching portions of that. There are a lot of ways to maintain pavement for 30, 40, 50 years if the road repairs are done properly. And we sent a plan to the city in 2018, 2019. It disappeared, our rolling maintenance plan, and we were disbanded. But
Just so you know, I looked for that.
what's that?
I looked for that plan.
Yeah.
When you mentioned it to me, and I found the binder that said, it was from 2013. Or
Okay.
2013, and it had two things in it. An agenda from, an agenda from 2013 and a letter from you, and then one from 2018. That's the only thing I found in there.
Yeah, 2018.
Was no plan, nothing.
I think it was like 2020 before we were disbanded.
Yeah,
We
there's nothing
presented.
there.
I think it was Tom Stangl was the chair at the time, and he presented that to the city council, and it disappeared.
Yeah.
And there's some minutes on the website here and there, stuff like that. But we spoke with a lot of really good people at the Minnesota DOT, and we were using mainly Shifsky for, and they're not in business anymore. Those people were absolutely wonderful, you know, working with us. And but we got a lot of information, and I think the roads, you know, I could have saved the city a lot of money. We drove around the other day. My wife and I drove all the city streets, and I looked at them, and I thought, yeah, this, that. And when you put the map up on the thing, I thought, yeah, you know, that's exactly what we found. But I think a lot of those sections of those roads that are slated for, you know, total resurfacing could be saved for quite some time in the interim. There are a couple of cul-de-sacs on White Pine Lane. There's the lake side of Wildwood. There's Birchwood Road where Mayor Mary lives, and some of those are in pretty bad shape. Nothing says we got to resurface, although you mentioned, okay, well, you know, you get a better price if you do the whole thing all at once. But we don't need to. They can move equipment back and forth, and you know, if we can resurface the sections that need to be done, and then chip seal. And you know, we spoke with a guy from MnDOT named Tom Wood. He was an engineer, and he collected statistics on how to make roads last forever. And he said, yeah, chip seal them for every 3 years for about 3 or 4 cycles, and then 5 years for a couple cycles, and every 7 or 8 years after that. And he says they'll last for a long time. You get a crack, you don't pour a little tar in it and put some toilet paper on it. That's worthless, you know.
You know, I don't disagree with you on that, but I guess we're trying to look into the future as well, right?
Yeah.
And if we're going to have to start replacing the water mains, which we are, they're coming to the end. They have 20 more years of life in them.
I totally understand that.
So, like,
my ultimate point is,
Yeah.
we got a terrible economy. We got a federal government that's pulling back grants.
Mhm.
We got a state that's, you know, $1.6 billion with a B in debt.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's going to be giving us any grants right now.
The only thing we can do is try, right? And
yeah,
if we don't
but-
get the money, we don't go forward. I mean,
But
that's
the plan I hear from the city is kind of like, you know, a doctor telling you, well, your knee is a little wonky, so we're going to amputate your leg. I want more opinions, you know. I want to look at it creatively and just see,
Yeah.
what can we do to stretch this out?
Right.
Maybe 10 years from now, things will be better. You know, my wife had a stroke a year and a half ago, and I'm looking at just this side shy of $100,000 in medical bills that we've paid. I can't afford, well, at $3 million, it would be about $8,000 a household. At $4 million, it would be about $11,000 a household. Plus financing. What's interest rate now? It's higher than it's
you
been
know
for
what?
years.
This is, I hear everything you're saying, and I don't disagree with any of it. I don't.
I'm just looking at ways to,
Right.
you know,
To extend the life and.
right.
It's
And-
that, you know, we're looking at ways too to cover everything that needs to be replaced. So We're just trying to do it in the most economical way possible.
Well, I've got a lot of good ideas, and I'm willing to
Yeah,
work on
okay.
a task force.
Perfect.
To try and get our roads back in shape, and,
Okay, we'll be in touch with you.
okay.
Thank you, John.
I just have a couple questions. One, does that work now? Hello? Okay, thanks. John, when we did the roads, or the water main replacement, there's certain parts of our community that were obviously older and some that were newer. And we did it in, was it 1962? Did we do everything?
No.
Okay.
Well, we did everything that was there.
They did in 1962, 64, 65. You did the main stretch, Wildwood Avenue, on up to Hall, Cedar. Then we had the development, Oak
Yep.
Ridge area, and Birchwood Avenue, Bridgeport. Those were the 70s.
Okay, so that explains to me is that basically we have a new system as of 1962 and the 1970s throughout our entire community.
Yep.
Pretty much. So that's one thing. The other thing is I think, Jennifer, it's really good that we are looking ahead because I think we do need to look long-term. I think also from the aspect of grants, yeah, they may not be available now, John. John sat on that committee, and I think Gene Ruley did also. Bottom line is that we have a lot of very talented individuals in our community, whether they're past engineers or whatever, their resources are really quite broad here. So I think that it's great that we're doing the long-term planning, and I think it's good that we're doing the potential for grants. If they don't happen, they don't happen. But the bottom line is, at least we tried, right? So whether or not we taking money from somebody else, I'm not sure if that's the case. But bottom line is that we should try and get that. If it's if we get, what was it, 13 million of the 14 million, terrific. But if we can't get it, then we're at the 11 million, and somehow we have to do it every year, a little bit of it, right? I don't think we can afford it to do anything at one fell swoop.
Thank you. We have 2 more minutes. We're wrapping it up at 8:30. 3 more minutes. You can have, yep.
Hi, John Lund, 612. 612 Wildwood, okay.
Can't hear you.
I've heard, what I've heard, it's not going. Okay, so what I've heard tonight is we need to do a bit more organizing with the financial side of this before the train leaves the station. And I'm hearing no discussion on curb and gutter. The reason we don't have curb and gutter is because we live within a Lakeshore Management Act zone, and all the water runs off the street into the yards, filters down and into the lake, keep it pure. That's why that is that way. And as far as the water runoff, I don't see where we have a problem. I went through this with Washington County years ago, and I understand where all our rain gardens are, where all our water runs to in the city, and we're pretty good. There's one pipe on Wildwood that goes direct into the lake, which should be addressed. Is the only really bad water runoff situation that we have, and all yeah. So that's all I got.
Thank you. All right, last one. Mary Sue, do you want to talk? Thank you. Mary Sue, you have a minute and a half.
I know. Thank you. A little pressure. I'm Mary Sue Simmons from Birchwood Court, and I'm on the Parks Committee. And a lot of you came when we had a public forum on what we should do with Ty Schmidt's Park. And we had wonderful ideas, and you get excited. We want new playground equipment, and we want community gardens and shade trees and a better-looking hockey rink. But what we ended up with, and the people decided, we had serious infrastructure programs because the dam park floods, and it just doesn't serve us well. And we discovered that we had to fix the drainage problems underneath the surface and the surrounding structures before we could even begin to think about putting anything on the top. And they're granting, we got the $85,000 from a conglomeration of state agencies to work on the water issue, because every drop of water that comes down in Birchwood ultimately is pretty much ending up in that lake. We have the worst drainage all over this community. Yards flood each other. The village hall is flooding down there. And our roads are flooding our parks. Polly's Park is a disaster when it rains because it gets water from both sides. So we have to look at what's underneath before, I'm speaking for the park now. We can't do anything decent and stable and long-lasting on top of the park until we fix the bottom. And we have found catch basins, broken pipes, broken drainage tile. There's a mess under there, and we will be working on that. We've got the grant to fix it. We got another grant to put flowers on top to do rain gardens. So if you get a grant, it will be big, and if you get one grant, you can get other grants because it's just easier. So I'm applauding these people, and I think we ought to take our time, get more advice, and figure out how we can go forward that is a long-lasting plan and gets us where we want to be without breaking the bank.
Thank you for all of you for coming. We really do want your feedback. We do appreciate it, and I'm speaking sincerely. I am a resident like you. I want what's best. I want what's most economical for this city. Come talk to me. If you have ideas, if you want to go in a different direction, come talk to me. Okay? You don't have to talk, you don't have to do back channel stuff. Come talk to me. Come talk to any of the council. We're all open. We all want what's best for all of us. Okay, thank you so much.